Hello, gentleman scholar here, Gary here. I've been wanting to do this video for a while, and of course, the more I procrastinate, the more the snowball rolls downhill, accumulating more snow, making it work. And if I consider something work, then I don't want to do it. So I just got myself down here, and now I'm going to do my video. Lucky you. Maybe one more light. Get that patted down a little bit. Today I'm going to talk to you about storytelling and the human need for stories. Hold that thought. I'm smoking capsin in honor of probably one of the greatest storytellers of all, Professor Tolkien. J.R.R. Tolkien. Americans say Tolkien. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But in deference to his native land, I'll call him Tolkien. Now, storytelling. Stories. Humans need stories. I don't care if it's the Bible. I don't care if it's a Harlequin romance. I don't care if it's a soap opera. I don't care if it's a Netflix series or a movie, what have you. Human beings need stories. And they need them because, hold on. It's going. We need stories because, for various reasons, we've been to get out of ourselves, to escape, to forget ourselves for a while. I think that the human need for storytelling, consuming storytelling, reading, listening to, is that we want to learn lessons. We want to maybe see what those stories have that can make us into what we think a better person actually is on some level. It's not just entertainment. We're trying to learn something. Ecolic. Thank you for your patience. Now, we've been telling stories ever since we lived in caves. We've been putting pictures on the cave walls. We've been telling stories to each other around the campfire. Human beings are stories. People are stories. Granted, messy ones without structure. But when someone tells you an anecdote about what happened to them last week when they couldn't get a babysitter or whatever, that they're telling you a story. They're fictionalizing it. They're putting it in a narrative framework. So they can tell it and you can listen to it. And humans thrive on that kind of thing. And I've always been fascinated with it. Stories and, whether people talk about, you see this movie or you see that movie or whatever, and wow, it was really great when this happened, when that happened. Some stories stay with us longer than other stories. But I'm watching the show right now, and don't judge me, called Call the Midwife. Oh, there you go. Go on yourself. And gone. I'm sorry. Call the midwife is something. When I was younger, I would have considered a goody two shoes program. It's like when I was younger, you'd hear the girls in school talk about Little House. Wow, it was really great when Laura did this and someone went blind. I'd roll my eyes. Oh God, whatever. That's just girly. Or they talk about soap operas. I'd roll my eyes up. Or the Waltons, roll my eyes up. But now as I get older, and I'm like 54 now, even though I don't look a day over 52, I'm coming to appreciate that more and more. And I've seen Little House with reruns on Me TV and everything else. And yeah, I've gotten the message. Although I've never actually read an article or heard him say it, Michael Landon I think he was a card carrying Christian, and he tried to instill those values in his storytelling when he came to Little House or when he came to Highway to Heaven or anything he was involved in. I'm talking too much and this won't stay lit. Oh dear. So, every time I try to watch Call the Midwife, I get up to like the end of season 2 and then life would get in the way. Tried it again, get to the end of season 2, life would get in the way. But this time I said, after I was done something called Home Fires, which took place in World War II. And yes, it's kind of the cozy British type of storytelling you get with all creatures great and small and everything else like that. I needed something else, something that was maybe tinged with a little bit of nostalgia where we look towards the past and things seem simpler back then, even though we know they really weren't. But from this vantage point, we like to pretend that they were. Anyway, a couple pops in. You can see why token like this. For kind of a little bit spicy, forces you to take your time, just like a hobbit would. Sutliff Tobacco Company. Um, so I start watching Call the Midwife again with my husband, and the thing I really like about Call the Midwife is that yes, everyone's nicer to each other than they are in the real world, but that's the whole point. That's the whole point of this fiction, this story, to impart values that are not so ego based. If there's a problem, the characters get together and they work together to solve the problem. And regardless of how insurmountable it is, they examine every single possible. I mean, I have a hard time believing that people were that community driven in any time period, but I'm just cynical. I'm an introvert, so hold that thought. But that's the lesson the show is trying to impart. Every time they show this, and it's about one of the most potentially tragic, potentially life affirming events that you can get when someone gives birth to somebody. Your whole life changes, and that's what the show revolves around. Like basically, the nuns are taking care of the impoverished in East Popular London. They're impoverished, they're working class, and difficult situations, alcoholism, wife beating, the whole thing. They're there to be like the social safety net. And the show opened up at the beginning of the National Health Service. So it was part of the whole initiative of the National Health Service, midwifery as they call it. So they go out to different places and they help to deliver children, see them through their problems and everything else, and they try to do their best in really, really, let's face it, in extremist circumstances. Um, they deal with every difficult situation you can think of: sexuality, race, stuff that was always there back in the day, late 1950s, early 60s. but never really got any attention. But it was always there in the background. People just chose not to see it or address it. But yeah, I'm in season 10 right now, and I gotta say, it really teaches you to be a more patient, more compassionate, and more helpful person. You say to yourself, man, wouldn't it be great if more people were like that? And that's what the show is inviting you to do. It's inviting you to be more like that. Now, I'm not gonna go and join the priesthood tomorrow. Let's see if I can get this going. But if you, instead of judging someone going through some difficult situation, I'm gonna get my little pipe tool here. Instead of judging someone going through a difficult situation, you try to empathize with them. That's another big point of the show. They teaches empathy. You try to empathize with them. You try to help them, do your best with them. And that's what the show is teaching. And isn't it nice to see that instead of like, performative cruelty or performative snarkiness, who can come off with the best one-liner to insult somebody? I mean, it's just refreshing to see in this day and age. And I wanted to celebrate that. I mean, and it kind of works because I was going shopping today at this place called Market Basket. It's right up the street in Hooksett. And it's a holiday weekend here. I think it's President's Day? Not really. Yeah, I think it's President's Day. It's where car companies use all the excuses to try and sell their cars, sales events, the whole thing. I go to Market Basket, prepared to be a kinder person. And yeah, it wasn't that busy. But even if it was, I was going to try and go with my generosity of spirit. That's another thing I want to say. The show has such a generosity of human spirit. I mean, embarrassing, really. It's like bags of it. Sometimes it's to the point where you roll your eyes and go, oh, no one's this good. No one's this perky. But overall, it's a nice lesson to learn, to be honest. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not a Sunday school type of person. I roll my eyes at stuff like Pollyanna and that whole thing. Or when someone's so positive that they're determined to ignore the bad stuff that happens at all costs. To me, that's a little creepy. But yeah, that's what this show does. And to be honest, I think that's the point of fiction, really, to maybe teach you things. And I mean, Bill and I are joking. It's like, well, by the time we finish the show, it goes 11 seasons, and we're in the 10th, towards the end of the 10th one now, we'll know how to deliver a baby. I highly doubt that. But you kind of get used to it. You see how they tie off the cord and how they cut it and all the different problems that they deal with. And it's all, and knowing the BBC and the British in general, everything is meticulously researched to kind of lend some verisimilitude to the fiction that you're seeing. And that's something I've always loved about the English in general and the BBC in particular, is that they do the research. I mean, the meticulous research to make it seem as real as possible. And to be honest, whenever I'm watching the show, I really feel like I've time traveled back to the late 50s, early 60s. In a way that, as much as I like the show, the requel of Quantum Leap hasn't convinced me. Like, for example, you have Dr. Ben's song, he quantum leaps back to the 70s, the early 70s, and there's sort of like a Carly Simon superstar whose life he's supposed to change for the better, and they're having an after party. Not one person is smoking. You can't depict drug use on television. I mean, in an after party, you'd expect the whole place to be like this fog of nicotine smoke and everything like that. But there's not. And the only concession to 1970s is like, a leisure suit from some supermodel, and some couple supermodels are wearing in the back, some pretty boy supermodels. No sideburns, no mustaches or beards. And I get it, it's a TV show. The budget's limited. But with Call the Midwife, you are back in 1959 / up to 1966. And of course, putting in the music of the time period really does help too, which they do. They do plenty of that. Sometimes I've used my music finder app on my phone to figure out what song is going on. Yeah, so is it a period nostalgia piece? Yes, but that's not its only purview. It's, like I said, trying to teach you how to be a better person. It's trying to Sunday school you a little bit. And I, for one, I'm okay with that at age 54. That's all. So I guess that's all I want to say. I hope you're all doing well. I'm going on 15 minutes. I wanted to do a couple of shout outs. I glommed on to someone called Gribbly, thanks to Beer Beard. Gribbly is a misanthrope, like I used to be. Um, he's ADHD, so his thought process goes all over the place, and he's just funny to listen to. You may not agree with all of his points of view, but he is funny to listen to. So I highly recommend you sub him. He just spent like last Sunday like pissing all over the Super Bowl. So, and I'm not a big sports fan either, so I found it particularly funny. But even if someone pisses on something that I like, I can still find the humor in it. But anyway, I hope you're well. Take care of yourself. I'm going to finish smoking my capstan and messing around online. Take care of yourself. Cheers.